Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mike Armstrong podcast show. And this morning, I'm joined by Brendan Kilcullen, who's a Juice Plus specialist and also, long-time business entrepreneur. And I'm looking forward to having a chat with Brendan today. How are you doing today, Brendan? You okay?
I'm great, Mike, and thanks very much for having me on your show this morning. Delighted that I've been invited onto it, Mike.
No problem, and thanks for coming on. And the place I usually start when chatting with people is asking them a little bit about the lockdown period, how it's been for you, and if there's anything in your business you pivoted to or changed during this time.
Yeah, well, I found since the lockdown, of course, like everybody else, you were probably not able to leave home, or you weren't able to have meetings in hotels, or you weren't able to go out anywhere. So I suppose we all took to the internet and took to Zoom calls. And definitely by doing a lot of Zoom calls, we found that business, a matter of fact, our business and the Juice Plus business in general, I think around the world has actually flourished in the last few months. So a lot of people probably were health conscious and probably were at home. And I suppose, those people had more money in their pocket than they had, even they weren't working, but they weren't going out spending. So some people had more money, some people had less money. But we found I got a lot of customer people saying, yes, I want to look after my health, and we can afford it now, and things like that. Mike,
Yes, definitely. I think there's definitely, a lot of people were earning the same money or similar money on furlough, and much less ways of spending that money other than, shopping online and buying things they can buy through online channels. And so, yes, I think for a business like yours, Juice Plus, getting everyone online, getting everyone at home, and thinking actually now's a good time to be healthy, with a killer virus around, all of those things would have added up to some decent trading.
Yeah, and I suppose the other good thing about our business was this, Mike, was that our business really was, a lot of it was online anyhow, because if I did take an order from somebody, would say I got their care details, or, well, you can't do that now with data protection, but before data protection, when you could get their care details, get their address, their name. If you want a free Juice Plus for the child, you got the child's name. And I have a website, we'll say, or Juice Plus will give me a website, and I will put in that order actually on the computer and send the details to the company. The company sent out the Juice Plus to the customer. So I never actually ever seen the customer's product. And actually I would get my commission then put into the bank. So it was all sort of done, a lot of it was done on the computer. The only thing that before this that I may have gone out doing one-to-ones with people with a laptop and sat down, had a cup of coffee, had a chat with them, and showed my presentation. You've probably seen my presentation before, Mike, anyhow. Yes. And do my presentation, sitting down with you, having a cup of coffee for 15 or 20 minutes, and they would order Juice Plus. But rather than doing that, then we took to the computer. I rang people, talked to people, said, would you like to hear about Juice Plus? No hair sell or anything like that. Did a presentation. Some people went for it, some people didn't. So that's the nature of business, so it is, Mike?
Yeah, definitely. And yes, entrepreneurs, it's our jobs to adapt. And so whatever situation comes on in life, you have to just find a way through it, don't you?
Well, absolutely, and certainly, like, I've heard a lot of people complaining about, say, the coronavirus and what has happened and how their business has gone down the Swanee. But, people have to adapt to whatever type of thing that there is in life. And there is a lot of things in life. If we had a war, a world war, we'd have to adapt to it, And I suppose this is not much different to a world war on us, So definitely a lot of people has adapted to it. But a lot of people then out there really has gone out of business and hasn't adapted, and had only one way of thinking, and they didn't come up with a second plan A or a plan B, which is unfortunate on them. And some of these people have been in business for maybe 30, 40 years, and I don't know, here in Ireland, there's a lot of pubs, right? The pubs were supposed to open in a week's time, next Monday, but now they're not going to open until the 10th of August unless they're serving food. But I just heard on local radio this morning, there's a lot of pub owners who are on this morning, now they're actually going to never open again, They probably were on the red line anyhow, but this certainly has put them over the cliff, so it has,
Yeah, well, a lot of pubs have been closing around because the generations today don't want to go out and drink alcohol like they used to years ago, and the ones that do drink alcohol, they tend to buy it cheap in the supermarkets rather than go to the pub and spend their money. So you can get 4 cans at home for the price of 1 pint out. So it's
Yeah, absolutely, and that is happening. And there seems to have been a lot more drinking at home since the lockdown was.
yeah,
But
definitely.
I still have found like that a lot of people has want to look after their health, and a lot of people are very very worried probably of the coronavirus and picking it up. And we all know about like if you have a good immune system and all that, like it does help to fight it. You know, and there's a lot of people like in this country, and probably more than your own country, that probably has died like and they had underlying issues and maybe weak immune systems and that. And I'm not going to say, Mike, to you today that Juice Plus will stop anybody from getting coronavirus or anything like that. But a funny thing, I don't know if you're on the call the other morning, but actually, I actually had a fall here in the house about 3 months ago, and I went to a physio. Well, I didn't go to. I went to a virtual physio online, and they told me what to do, but I was getting no better. So then I went to my doctor. So then he referred me to a surgeon that does operations, an osteo surgeon. So almost 2 weeks ago now, last Friday week actually, I had keyhole surgery on my shoulder, and actually the bone that probably take away. He said he had to take. I was back on Tuesday now to get the dressings off. That take away some of the bone and reattach it again and strap it together. That's a very major 2-hour operation. But the one thing that the nurse had and the surgeon was absolutely surprised at, my actual wounds where they did the keyhole surgery had absolutely totally healed up in 10 days. A matter of fact, I intend to put them up on my Facebook page. And they said to me, we never have seen this before. How has your wounds healed? Well, I said, I am looking into my health. I said, I'm big into nutrition, told about Juice Plus. And, Juice Plus heals nothing in your body, but it does help your body to heal itself. And it does give that extra bit of a boost. It's just like you're like giving your car a push to get a start. The faster it goes, the quicker it start. So certainly, I feel myself that, and I've been taking Juice Plus, and I've been looking after my health for the past 27 years. As you might be aware, I did own a gym here in Ireland, in my town here. I had a gym, and I was in a few other businesses as well, but that's where I really picked up the nutrition. I had a great interest in fitness and gym work, so that's kind of where I came from there. Now I did run a few other businesses if you were interested in hearing
Yeah, what
anything
I,
about
what I
them,
was going
Mike.
to ask you, the next question off my lips was going to be, I know you've been involved in Juice Plus for a long time, 20, 25 odd years or whatever you've said before, but what did you used to do before that was my question. So fire away, what else did you do on top of the gym work?
Well, my first job was electrical. Well, I became an electrician myself and my late brother. So then we opened an electrical contracting business, and we formed a company way back about 40, 45 years ago. And unfortunately, my brother passed away at the age of 53 when he had MS. He spent the last 10 years of life in a wheelchair. So myself and my sister-in-law did. We had a building company as well at the same time. We used to build some houses and stuff and apartments and that. So I was kind of left in with the electrical and the building when after my brother died. So I got a guy to look after the building for me. Then I decided to take in a foreman to look after the electrical. Now we did employ at the time about 7 or 8 guys in the electrical. But then things started to get good in the next 5 years. About 2000, things were booming here in Ireland. So then I employed more people as well, and we used to do a lot of office of public work here in Ireland as well, and a lot of government jobs. So I certainly had to employ more guys then. So I ended up employing up to 22 people in the company. So that certainly was an extra, probably a headache to have that. So then running the building company as well. So I decided then that I would close down the building company because you don't want to say if you have too many irons in the fire, some of them is going to go cold.
Yeah.
So I decided to close down the building company, and I had the gym then. I bought a property where I had the gym, and I was running that at the same time. My wife used to look after the gym, and I had some lads as instructors looking after that. So then I ran that until 2006. So I decided then in 2006 that I would close the gym because I was after spending 14 or 15 years with that. So I did own the property. So then I leased the property then to two lads that decided that it would open a casino because I had a license to see for, we say, the gym at a suitable place that the license would have still stood for a gaming place. So they opened a casino in 2006, and them lads are still running the casino since. Well, of course, they're locked down now for the last 5 months. So that's one source of income that has dried up at the manse in the last 5 months. But thank God I have some. I wouldn't be dependent totally on that because I have some other sources of income as well. You know, I have some property in another county as well as that, so I have that rented as well. So bought a bit of land and different things. So I dipped my hands into quite a few pies, and thank God, Mike, anything that I did, they all were successful. Some of them more successful than others, but in general, most things I didn't lose money in anything. Where I suppose I dipped into shares. I may have not done too well in that. That sort of took a nose dip there some years ago, and I did happen to probably lose a little bit of money on that. But again, it wasn't, as I say, I did never put bread and butter money into it. It was all this money that I was, well, I suppose, well, at the man's level, if anyone can say they can afford to lose money, but it was money that wasn't going to sort of kind of, you know, leave me that I wasn't able to go and put food on the table, you know.
Yeah,
So that
definitely.
was, you know, and I suppose I was reared actually, Mike, on a farm, on a very small farm, and we were well, I might as well say we probably were poor enough in the sense that we there was very little money at home where my dad and my mum was, but we always had enough to eat, and we always grew all our own stuff at home and all that. But we were no different to any other neighbour around. They were probably as poor as we were, you know. But everybody had enough to eat, and we all helped each other. And so I decided, no more than my brother, that the farm wasn't a thing for us. So we decided that we'd make a better life. And I was always entrepreneurial, and I always had a liking that I would be working for myself. And I don't think that I did work for my brother for a while, but it was a bit different working for my brother. But I probably would be not a great guy to have a boss telling me what to do. I
No.
would prefer telling people what to do than
Yeah.
somebody telling me.
Yeah,
So
so
that's kind of,
in a 45-year career, if you like, as an entrepreneur, what are your biggest sort of life lessons that you learned along the way?
I suppose the lesson that I would have learned along the way would be, you know, well, I'll tell you what I did learn along the way, and I may have said this, that there was a lot of lads that would have served their time with me in the electrical. And I know myself and my brother, when we started out first, you know, we bought one van, and it was an old second-hand van with a rusty floor in it, and we didn't buy new equipment. We started out, you know, we were hardly able to pay like we had guys working for us at the start that we were probably paying more money to than we were paying to ourselves. But we had to creep before we walked. But what I did see with lads that served their time with me, that they actually left and decided, oh, this is a fantastic career out there, start your own business. Buy a new van, buy a new car, get a new house, do all these things, you know, without any training at all in business. And it lasted only a few years. But the one, as you said, the one lesson that I probably learned would be that well, you know, that I suppose we never made much mistakes. I suppose we always were careful, and we started. We never, you know, it's like biting off more than you can chew. It's like eating the elephant one bite at a time. You know, some people try to eat the elephant all in one bite, and you just can't do that. You know, I suppose um, the one I suppose the one lesson that I would have learned would be that I would have probably have done some things maybe a little bit different. I probably would have done. I worked hard, you know. I probably worked maybe a 70-hour week, and I probably was the lesson that I did learn in my business was this: that I didn't take in a foreman sooner into the business, because I felt myself, Mike, that if I went out to the job, if the job wasn't right, I was responsible for it. If the pricing wasn't right, if the office work, I was trying to look after office work. We had a girl work in the office, and my sister-in-law did the wages and all that. But I still kind of felt myself, if I wasn't there, things wasn't going to happen. And it was a little bit stupid on my behalf. So then I decided to take in a foreman. I took him aside one day, a lad that was working for 20 years for us. And I said to him, would you like to be our foreman? And I said, I will put more money in your wages. And at the time, I remember putting something like 40 or 50 pounds in his wages, which I am talking probably, Mike, about 24, 25 years ago, which was a lot of money at the time. And I said to him, you're going to be responsible for the jobs out there. Every job that's been done, I want you to oversee it. And if there's something wrong in that job, I said, you have to take responsibility for that. But I said, are you willing to do that? And he said, no problem. And thank God, it was one of the best decisions that I ever made, because it did actually free me up a little bit more, that I wasn't sort of trying to look after jobs, and I wasn't running from A to B and trying to look after the office. And like, I had myself driven. I would say myself, Mike, that I probably have a record here in Ireland for eating my dinner standing at the table. I could eat my dinner in about 30 seconds to a minute. I probably
because well, I drink my tea with lots of milk in for the same reason, because I haven't got time for it to go cold. So I have lots of milk, makes it cold, bang in one, off you go. Thank you very much. Nice cup of tea.
Yeah, but that is the situation, though, that when you are self-employed or when you have your own business, that you're inclined to feel. I had this feeling, Mike, that I couldn't be done without. I felt if I took a week's holidays, I was away on the holidays, and wondered, well, what's going wrong while I'm going away? If I died, the business would probably stop, which was sort of stupid. I thought I couldn't be done without. But it took me some years. But that would be one lesson that you asked me, one life lesson.
Yeah.
That I would have moved the workload off myself more.
So learn to delegate, really. Learn to delegate quicker, and trust people.
Yes, absolutely. And I think myself, that is where entrepreneurs and people go wrong, that they don't delegate more to different people. And what I actually did do, was this, that what we just sort of did in the lecture, that we got fellas and we sort of sorted them out to, this is your field, and you do this, and everybody sort of kind of had their own job to do, and everybody knew what they had to do then. And and I will also remember that was one of the best decisions that I ever made. I suppose if I ever was to have learned the life lesson, I should have done it sooner. But there's never a bad time, I suppose, to do something like this.
Yeah, definitely. And I know you're big into personal development, as am I. What's the person that's most inspired you or most educated you, and what was the lesson?
Well, I'll tell you, personal development, I suppose I would follow probably, Jim Rohn would be one guy that I would have a big liking for.
He was awesome.
We all know Brian Tracy. There's quite a few of these guys that I would follow, just to try to think of names off the top of my head. Your man that has a strong voice, what's his name in America?
Les Brown.
I like Les Brown as well. You'll follow him. There's another fella there. Oh, his son was on the Pat Slattery thing.
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robson. I would follow Tony now, and he's very good, so he is that. But Leslie Fieger, do you know Leslie Fieger?
Yes, yeah, I know Leslie.
As a matter of fact, I was in 2 courses on Leslie Fieger, the Delphin course. I would have done that with, we went over to America to done the 7-day course, and I did a 3-day course on personal development. Yes, I have a great liking for personal development, and negativity, I suppose, is not a word that I like to ever hear being used, and the word I cannot, and I mean, was it Henry Ford said one time, if you believe you cannot, you're right, and if you believe you can, you're right. So
yeah, I love that saying. I love that saying. If you think you
So
can, you're right, and if you think you can't, you're right. So it's all about mindset, isn't it?
what it is true, and that is, and a lot of people will say, well, like we'll say you're doing a podcast there, people say, oh, geez, Mike, I couldn't do that. You were able to do that. You were brilliant at that. But like, I mean, I'm sure certain, Mike, the first time that you did a podcast, you were probably shaking and saying to yourself, you know, I probably will never be able to, well, I didn't say you would never be able to do it, but you'd be nervous about doing it. But once you do something once or twice or three times, it just becomes second nature to you. It's like driving the car.
I
You know,
work
we
with
all
I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who are older than me, as you are. Most of the entrepreneurs I work with, a lot of them are in their sort of 50s and 60s, and a lot of them were hesitant to use technology and that sort of thing. So I used to help them, handhold them through updating their websites through the CRM system, through the content management system, CMS system, or filling in their CRM, or doing social media or search engine optimization, all that sort of stuff. And I've been glad to see, obviously, in lockdown, a lot of those people who were hesitant to try a lot of these things, they've sort of been forced into it now, and are obviously reaping the benefits of it now going forward.
well, I've been on Facebook probably for maybe 10 years now. I just don't know, but like people my age, I'm 69, Mike, and people said to me about something. I said, I'm on Facebook. You're on Facebook, you know, and and I say, yeah, no problem. And then I could think, geez, I don't know, I never was on Facebook. I wouldn't go on Facebook. And the other thing, I would be talking to people who would say 4 or 5 years ago, and I'd say, I was thinking, I'd say, but I'd say, I'm in a hurry home now. I'd say, I have a Zoom call tonight at 8 o'clock or something. I meet someone at Zoom. A Zoom call? What's a Zoom call? Nobody actually knew what a Zoom call was. They thought it was something part of an aeroplane or something. But everybody, I think everybody, from the child to the person that's 100 now, knows what a Zoom call is. And
Yeah,
thank God for Zoom calls.
so would have been the company to buy shares in prior to the lockdown.
Absolutely, but the Zoom call is a fantastic way. And you know what I have found about even the Juice Plus business, and I often would out here and sat into my car and would say drove 50 miles, would say to meet somebody, and you sit down and have to buy the cup of coffee for them and buy the cup for yourself, and you would do the presentation, and the probably say, I think about it. And you drive home and you might ring the back, say, well, what about that call? I decided I won't go on Juice Plus. I leave it for the moment. I can't afford it. You're after spending half a day, you're after driving 50 miles. Whereas, now, no more than myself and yourself talking, I can ring up somebody and say, would you be interested in hearing a little bit about Juice Plus? I'm doing a Zoom call tonight at 8 o'clock. Would you like to hop on? Oh, yeah, no problem. And they'll hop on. You might have 4 or 5 on the call. And if 1 or 2 of the guys, I have to walk from my living room down here to my office to do that, which is about 10 steps. Whereas before this, it would have taken half a day to do it. So maybe there's something good out of this lockdown. And maybe maybe this new way of doing business that we probably won't go back to our old way, our old way of doing things,
Definitely. I think efficiency is going to go through the roof. Like, you know what I mean? I think myself, I used to do 1 or 2 networking events a week. And now I do about 8 a week. And it probably takes me less time to do 8 than it used to take me to do 2.
Yes. I know I would go to networking meetings as well, and I've been invited to quite a few BNI meetings and that. And I got up one morning to go to a BNI meeting. I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, so I did, and showered and put on my clothes and went off and drove for an hour, and we had breakfast. And I got up at 5 o'clock. I think I got back at 11 or 12 that day. It was actually, you could say it was actually nearly a full day, so it was, in real life, so it was.
Yeah. And not only do you save the time in the traveling, you save the time in the preparation, getting dressed, because you've got to look smart and all of that. You save the time then for me, because I do my own washing and ironing and all that, to save that time, so you're not having to, wash so often and everything. So, you literally get, hours and hours and hours back that you just wouldn't have benefited from before.
Yeah, absolutely, because you can, as I say, you can do twice or 3 times the amount of work by sitting at your computer. Okay, it is nice, Mike, and more than that, great talking to you here today, Mike, and doing this podcast, but to be great, I'd love to sit down, have a cup of coffee and beach and all that. And the same with a lot of people out there that has probably gone on Juice Plus and people I have never met. But I do hope to meet them someday down the road. But at the same time, as you said, Mike, this does cut down on a lot of expense and a lot of wasted time. And I suppose we all wasted a lot of time. If we look back on life, and I suppose if there is one other lesson that you can look at, we probably all have wasted a lot of time that we could have probably put to better use. But
Yeah.
maybe we're more educated, and maybe the younger people, the younger generation is more educated now that they will put their time to better use. But the other thing is this, that not just alone working right, but I think we see people need to be educated in the way that they use their time,
Yeah.
not waste their time,
That's
because
actually something I train, that is efficiency. So, because I'm big into efficiency, I used to be a corporate sales director, and I managed to get 7 people when I took over my sales team. I got them from doing 360 grand in year 1 to 680 in year 2 to 960 in year 3 of the same 7 people. And that was all about training, efficiency, technology, that sort of stuff. So it's really getting more out of what was there. And then from that 3 years in, then I was able to take on up to 17 people over the next 5 years, and I got them up to doing 5.7 million. So 1.7 million new business and 4 million of renewals in the pot. That just kept growing over the 8 years. We were growing the portfolio by 120% each year, whilst keeping the numbers to 93%. So we were only losing 7% in numbers, but we were growing the portfolio value by 120%. So the value was getting more, while a couple of people would be dropping off,
And that has happened too. And I know of some companies here that would have, over the years and years, had a lot of salesmen, would say, out on the road, going from business to business, would say, selling products or whatever, selling whatever the company was selling. And the company had, would say, 4 or 5 or 6 of these guys employed, and they had them company cars, and they had, and there was a lot of expense there. And
Yes.
I've been talking to a few of these people now who these guys has their cars all right, still has their cars, but they're sitting at home and they're doing the same business with the companies, will say, rather than going into a store. And what always happened with the salesman, he went into the store, and if there was 3 customers there in the store, the 3 customers were going to be attended to first before the salesman was going to be talked to, because he was the least important, because he was there to sell something.
Yeah.
The shop was going to sell 3 customers something, and he could be standing there for a half an hour or an hour, and that was his company's time that was being wasted as well, So they are doing a lot of that now from at home, whereas there's none of that traveling, or there's none of that standing in a shop or standing in a place wasting time, So definitely, and that is something that you hit on there, Mike, about efficiency and about time management, and like people always thought, I have to do 8 hours a day, I have to do 8 hours a day. But the thing about it is, there's people out there probably now doing more in 4 hours than most people are doing in 8 hours, and again, it's how you do your work, and how you can put the time in, or what you're actually,
Yeah, it's the reason I do Zooms now instead of podcasting, because I can get about 2.5 hours worth of work into a 45-minute chat. And then I can get 15 minutes of marketing work, which save me another hour. So literally I can get an hour in an hour. I can do what most people would take 3 hours to do.
Yes, yeah. I go back again just to talk, if you don't mind, Mike, about the network marketing, about the business, Just Plus business.
Yes, yeah.
And the one thing that I had, I was in the conventional business, and it's very hard to switch over to a different type of business. But I did have myself well educated. I was always the type of guy that always looked at things. I never dismissed anything, even though those things I looked at that wasn't for me. But a lot of people say to me, will you ever look at such a thing, Brendan? And I would always have the honourable thing to that person to say, yes, I look at it. And I'd look at it and I would say, well, look at Mike, I think what you're doing there is grand, But to be honest, I'm not interested. And I haven't, it doesn't suit me, you know. But I did look at network marketing for the last 25 to 7 years, but never got that big into it. Like kind of retired. But what I do know now is this, that it's great that I could be in bed tonight to sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning and somebody's making money for me.
Yeah.
Because in another country, and like I have my businesses in 3 or 4 or 5 countries at the moment, and like I don't even know the people that's in them countries. I don't even know the people that's on the product, but I still get commission out of it. You know, people might say, "Well, that's insane. That's not right." That, you know, but that's how this business works. You know, it is a business, and you know, if it's treated as a business, it is a good business. You know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'm somebody, I always look into all opportunities, so that I can make my judgment rather than just say no to them. Like, I always consider all opportunities, but when you do a lot of networking, like me, I get a lot of networking marketing opportunities come my way, and something I'm very conscious of as well is that you've got to, if you've got a big goal or a big dream or whatever, and sometimes you need to focus on that. So I'm big into. I will do a network. I've never done a network marketing thing.
Yes.
I've considered a few. I've looked at the Juice Plus option. I've looked into the Cash FX. I quite like that, the Cash FX. That's probably more in line with my interests, if you like. But I always consider the options. I haven't actually taken one up at the moment. I've been close a few times. I've signed up to a couple, but then never really had the time to put the energy in. I'm on a mission to become a global speaker myself, so I try not to get too many other things get in the way of that mission.
Yeah.
Big
Well,
task,
well, it's very hard to do everything. As I said, sometimes it's not easy to ride 2 horses at the one time, so you're definitely going to fall off. But it does come back to one thing. When I opened the gym, I opened my gym back in 1992. And I had a guy who was a good friend of mine. He was an auctioneer, and I had the place open. And I don't mind Mike telling you, back in 92, I was after spending, I bought a building, I think it was £80,000. And I borrowed another 80 to do it up. And I had to borrow another 80 or 90 for equipment for it. And like I was to there in debt, so I was,
Yeah.
And at the place open, in my town here, there's probably about 18,000 people or 20. And it was the only gym that was in the town at the time. And I felt it was going to do well. So this auctioneer came in one evening, looked around, said, "Your place is lovely," and blah, 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 and so on. But he said, I said, "Brendan," he says, "you took an awful chance." He says, "I wouldn't do what you done." He says, "You took an awful chance opening a place like this." He says, he says, "Are you sure it's going to work?" So at that stage, he left, and he put a bit of a doubt. You know how somebody puts a doubt in your mind?
Yeah.
So I was home that night, and I had this thing going around in my head. "Jesus, Brendan, what am I after doing? What am I after doing?" And this went round in my head for about a couple hours. So I straightened myself up, Mike, and I said, "Well, I said, who is he?" I says, "I will make this work. I'm not going. I will prove that I will make this work." And I left. The next day, I didn't even think, dear man. It never came into my head afterwards about what he had said. But I think it was the best thing that he ever did say to me, because I got more determined, Mike, to make the actual thing work, and I did make it work, and it did work.
Yes.
So it goes to show you, people, advice from people, like, you have to go on your own. I will listen to people, no matter any advice people will give me, and I would never dismiss any advice. But I will always take my own advice.
Yes, yeah. Well, yeah, I know that's us entrepreneurs are like that, I canvass opinion all the time, but I will
Yes.
always go with my own gut instinct and my own approach to life. I'm not an imitation. I'm not somebody else. I am me, and I will take information. I will use that to go through my calculator in my brain, and then I will go with what I think is best for me, because ultimately other people's opinion is theirs, and it's from their perspective, and it's from their experience, and it's from their skill set, and it's from their knowledge bank, which are different to your own.
Yeah, and the other thing, Mike, is this, that if you listen to everybody, one person will say, don't do this or do this. So what would happen yet, Mike, is this, that you probably wouldn't end up never doing anything.
That's right.
But
That's right.
you'll be
Yeah.
listening to so many people's advice, because one person will advise you, don't do it. Somebody else say, maybe you should. Somebody else say, oh, go ahead, do it. So you're going to get 3 or 4 or 5 people's different opinion on something. So that's why I would say I will always go with my own. And it's like everything else, I would feel myself that if I do something, do a business, if I had done some business venture that didn't work for me, well, I just look in the mirror and say, well, Brendan, you didn't take anyone's advice. It's your own mistake you made, and you're going to blame but yourself. But if I was to take advice from you, Mike, if you advised me here today to do something and I did that on your advice, I'd probably say, well, I wouldn't have done that only for Mike Armstrong told me to do it. I'd probably ring up Mike and say, Mike, you told me to do this and it didn't work.
I actually I give quite a lot of advice in my business, but I never give it as advice. I always tell people this is what I would do in that situation. Yeah. So that's how I give advice, because ultimately, when I say to people, this is what I would do in that situation, but it's your life, it's your business. You've got to decide what you would do, what's best for you. We all got different levels of risk we're willing to take. We've all got different knowledge. We've all got different contacts and networks. I would do this in this situation because of the knowledge I have in my brain and the connections I have. I know I can make it work. But you might not be in the same position. So so I can only advise people, this is in that situation, this is how I would go about it, or this is the solution I would offer, or this is the activity I would do. But ultimately, you're a boss, you're yourself, you're a person, you're a human being. You've got to make up the mind for yourself.
Yeah, well, most people a lot of people probably that's in business and that has succeeded in business, probably has got advice and they have used it, but then a lot of people that's in business that probably went on their own gut instinct and decided what they were going to do, and it worked. But the one thing that I feel about business, that if you go out there with this attitude that I'm going to make this work and you're prepared to put in, and I don't care, if you work an 8-hour day, that's fine, you're working for somebody. But if you decide to start up your own business, you must be prepared to put in more than your 40 hours. And you're going to have to do, as a young person, you're going to have to do that for quite a number of years. And you will find along the way then easier ways, no more than as I said earlier about getting a foreman and all that. You will find ways along the route that the thing will get easier for you by employing people that's going to do work that you were already doing, and you're going to be able to train people into doing things that you were doing. And you're not going to be able to work 70 or 80 hours a week for the rest of your life. You do, there's not much, but I wouldn't like to be that type of entrepreneur, because you would drain yourself out, kill yourself out. When you're in your 20s and 30s, as you know, Mike, you can work them.
Yes. Yeah.
I did do them 70, 80 hours, and I worked it all hours of night and through the night and different things. But having said that, I really would say I was in my 50s, probably when I was in my 50s, I would say that I probably have never done what you would call a really, really physically hard day's work. This up here might have been going, but I decided, I'm going to take life a bit easier. I can get somebody else to make money for me.
I've been fairly lucky. I've used my voice all my life because I was in sales. So I haven't actually done much of a physical day's work all my life, but I'm a strategist. So my brain is always working. It works from the moment it wakes up until the moment I go to sleep again, because I'm working on a billion strategies, on a billion different things. Not only am I working on strategies for the things I have to do every day, my business, my life, and all the rest of it, I'm working on strategies for businesses I haven't even got, because they're ideas of businesses and stuff. The brain's just constantly whirling away,
And I retired about 10 years ago. I retired probably about 57, 58 out of my lecture, because there was a bit of a downfall here. And then I passed the business on to my nephews, and my sister-in-law still looks after the office a bit. But people says, how is retirement? But sure, I didn't retire. I just retired into another business. I did. You know, and people say, you know, I'm 69. Will I retire? You know, if you backed up to my front door tomorrow morning with a lorry load of money, Mike, and say retire, you know, that's not what my life is about, so it is. My life is about talking to people. I do love communicating with people, and I love talking to people. I love meeting people. I love doing Zoom calls. People was something that I always loved meeting. I've met nice people. I've met not so nice people. I've met horrible people. But at the same time, I would have a great love for people. So I would, you know.
Good, good.
And
That's a good place to end. That is, because I've got another event I've got to get on to.
well,
So
Mike, I am absolutely delighted that you invited me on, and we could talk for hours, I think. And
sure, yeah,
thanks a million again, and we will be in touch very, very soon. And as I said again, thanks a million, Mike.
yeah, brilliant. And thanks a lot for coming on. And yeah, thanks for sharing some of your history and your knowledge. And just have a great day.
And the same to you, Mike. Thank you very, very much.
Brilliant.
Cheers.
Okay, nothing else left for me to say now other than have a great day. I know I will. And thanks very much for listening.